Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jen and İskit, and you are watching What's New, What's News. Yes, we have been following Turkey's agenda closely, and there are new developments happening after the Sunday's local election. As you know, many of you may heard about the latest incident that actually the Supreme Election Board Committee annulled pro-Kurdish Dem Party's victory in one, and after the objection coming from the ruling party AKP, but this caused a lot of troubles afterwards. There was widespread protest across Turkey. And after a day after, actually, they canceled this, and they gave the certificate to the pro-Kurdish Dem parties Abdullah Zeydan, one mayor now. I have a very distinguished guest today. Political scientist Sezin Öney will be with us. Let me invite her. Welcome.
Hi, hello everyone.
Hi, how are you?
It's very nice to be with you, Ceren, because it's very nice to be with young people who are very promising and doing very innovative things like this, disseminating news about Turkey. So thank you. It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much for your kind words, and I really appreciate that you actually spare your time with me. I know you're busy, your schedule is tight, but
always.
Thank you. But we have a lot to talk today. As you know, the recent developments are very vital in Turkey now, because actually this is like a fate of Turkey's future. On the other hand, what caused this kind of problems with the annulment at the beginning for the pro-Kurdish Dem party, and then why they stepped back afterwards, do you think?
Well, it's a very intricate court process, and it's a case in point about how the whole judicial process has become politicized in Turkey, actually. Because what happened was the fifth heavy penalty court in Diyarbakır signaled a green light to Abdullah Zeydan, who later became the mayor-elect from Dem Party, that he can have all his political rights back. Because he had a court case against him regarding propagating terrorism, and afterwards he was acquitted. Then you have to have your political rights. I mean, the right to hold public office back, and that was given by the Fifth Heavy Penalty Court. But what happened was he applied to the higher electoral board, and this is the regular procedure with all the candidates. And he was given an okay from the higher electoral board, Abdullah Zeydan, to become the candidate for one from Dem Party. Everything was fine, but 2 days before the election, the Justice Ministry, out of the blue, asked the prosecutor to have this fifth heavy penalty court's decision annulled. And just in mere hours, what the fifth heavy penalty court did was to walk back from its own decision. Of course, in a sound judicial system, something like that under rule of law cannot happen, because a court may not remake up its mind change its mind and take back its decision. Only a higher court may do that. But that didn't happen. Just in a matter of hours, on 29th of March, Abdullah Zeydan's the right to hold public office was taken back. So
Mhm.
he could not become a candidate. But nevertheless, this wasn't this nobody was alerted at the time. And there were the elections on 31st of March. He was elected, landslide, doubling the votes to his nearest competitor, in this case, Justice and Development Party's AK Party's candidate. Uh, what he got was around 250,000 of the votes, approximately something like that, and
Mhm.
the competitor half that vote. So there is a huge gap, as you see. But once he's elected and he has to get the mandate, the procedural mandate, he couldn't. The higher electoral board notified the one electoral board that his public office rights were taken back at the wee hour, just like that. And so what happens in this case? The second person, the second contender, becomes the mayor. But
Mhm.
because there's this huge judicial monstrosity, and of course there was the self-confidence of the opposition, the whole of the opposition, the winners, I mean, uh,
Mhm.
about the electoral results, then there was a big backlash. And this time, not only Dem Party, but other parties and people even unsympathetic to the Kurdish cause or Dem Party were reacting against this decision.
Mhm.
They read this decision as something that goes against the rule of law, that would jeopardize the whole rule of law in Turkey. So this is why there was such a reaction. Uh, Otherwise, in the best case scenario, it would be only Dem Party reacting against alone to
Mhm.
what's happening, and there might be some hushed reactions from the opposition. But this time, this was a totally united front.
Mhm.
And as I said, even the nationalist circles, I mean, not the party circles, but people at large, general, they were reacting against this decision.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, yes, some of the names that I checked who actually close to the ruling party, and even they were against this decision because they found it very undemocratic. This time, this is not the case because there is a huge difference because now Dem Party won in one. They won all the districts as well. It's not only about
Yeah, exactly.
uh, the big city. It's about all districts and everything. So I think this was very significant and important uh, event in Turkey. How significant was the decision by Turkey's Supreme Election Board to overturn the regional decision to annul Abdullah Zeydan's victory?
Well, it's also politicized. This is the trouble, actually, because a higher election council was the one who triggered initially I mean, via the Justice Ministry, via the Fifth Penalty Court, and higher election board actually notified one election board about the decision. So it wasn't like they didn't know about this, or it was despite them. But they had to also walk back from their own decision, just like Fifth Heavy Penalty Court in other circumstances before. They had to walk back from their decision because of the political circumstances. Uh,
Mhm.
Evidently, it was read by the political decision makers that this is going to be a horrible mistake to push this to farthest points and have AK Party's candidate actually become the mayor, it would just settle down and it would lead to bigger issues in one, like people revolting, and there were already events going on. So this is why they took back their decision.
Mhm, mhm. Well, yes, I think stepping back is the right.
But but uh, but just one thing, the saga is not finished yet, because there are some commentators, some reporters in the mainstream news channels who are close to the government, who are saying that there might be more unfolding events regarding the judicial procedure. So this might go on to higher courts, and the higher courts may give
Mm.
different decisions, and then afterwards, once again, we return back to square one, and AK Party's candidate actually takes the mandate from Abdullah Zeydan. This is intricate. I don't think this will be the case at this point, but once events die down and the public agenda just shifts to other things, then there might be a court case coming against Abdullah Zeydan once more.
Hopefully, it won't happen. I mean, well, this is expected, to be honest, because this is like this became after 2019. I think this became like a regular procedure or
Yeah.
process that the ruling party has been repressing the procured dish parties, especially in the southeastern region of Turkey. And what they do actually, maybe it would be good to give some brief background about it. They sent a decree to the Dem parties, how do you say, mayorships or
Mhm.
manipulatory centers, and they are taking
Municipal
the
councils, yeah.
administration from them party and then transferring to the ruling party AKP. This is the whole regular process at since
Yeah, what they do is appointing trustees. So the trustees maybe are usually bureaucrats. They may be the governors of the place or some other bureaucrats just appointed from Ankara, the capital. But what happens was that the Dem parties, mayors, are not only removed from their positions, but they're imprisoned because there are heavy penalty cases pending against them.
Yes, yes. So hopefully it won't happen again. I think this is like a clear. What do you think about the reaction of people? Not only from southeastern region, we have witnessed some really unfortunate scenes coming from the Çağlayan courthouse when the lawyers wanted to protest the decision as well. But it was like a widespread protest happened in Ankara, Izmir, Istanbul, everywhere. I think this was kind of a clear message to the government that we don't want this such cases like this anymore. How do you think? How do you evaluate their reactions?
Definitely, it wasn't calculated. Whoever plotted the scheme didn't foresee what it would come to. They were expecting, as I mentioned before, that Dem party would be just left to own devices. There would be heavy security pushed against Dem party and the protesters, if there were any. And they certainly didn't expect the main opposition party, now so reinvigorated and strengthened by the electoral results, standing beside them party and cooperating in the sense that advocating the same issue, that this is a judicial horrible situation that shouldn't happen. This is against rule of law. And this is clearly against the will of the people, the electorate of one people. This whole saga that unfolded, the events unfolding, were completely unforeseen, as I said. So this is why they had to walk back. But this doesn't mean that once events die down, once the agenda moves on, and you never know, because the Kurdish question is always utilized in manners with the security agenda accompanying it, to curb freedom of speech, all the freedoms in general, not just regarding the Kurdish people. Of course, the Kurdish people and DEM party are the primary targets, but in general, whoever speaks for that cause, or the advocacy of rights regarding Kurdish people, then becomes a scapegoat. We have witnessed that before. There were a group of more than 1,000 academics who signed a petition regarding the Kurdish question when there were heavy internal military operations in the Kurdish dominated cities. That's back in 2015. They suffered for years and years, and they're still suffering because all their rights regarding employment, public employment particularly, but they were also framed, and they couldn't work in private universities as well. So let's remember back that episode. Once there's this kind of heavy pressure exerted over the people, non-Kurdish people who are cooperating with the Kurdish, then the agenda gets all the situation gets very tense, all very much securitized. Then the cooperation breaks down eventually. So whoever plotted this might be opting for that in the future, because this was right after the elections. There was a general buoyancy. There was an air of democracy, fresh air of democracy, just circling around Turkey. So it was a wrong time indeed for something like that to happen. But we don't know in the future. I mean, I don't mean maybe weeks, but in the coming months, we never know what's going to happen. And there might be a big military operation towards the northern Iraq, and the Kurdish question might erupt once again in this huge securitized way.
Well, hopefully, let's be a little bit optimistic this time, because everything is changed.
Yes, exactly.
Hopefully it won't happen, but these are very possible scenarios. I agree with you. These are very possible to happen in Turkey.
This is what we have witnessed over and over again.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is like an ongoing process in Turkey that we have been dealing with, and over 2 decades. Yes, 2 decades. So unfortunately, hopefully it won't continue like that. This is the hope. This is the wish from me. How do you view the response of the main opposition party, CHP? You think? How was the leader of CHP's Özgür Özel's reaction after İmamoğlu made some statements about it? Because this situation is not only DEM party facing. Actually, this is kind of a process that with the objections to the Supreme Election Board, actually many of CHP, CHP's districts or big cities, there are some objections coming from the ruling party side, and I don't know, but another point is it takes time for them to agree or disagree, or give an annulment, or making a new election on June? How do you see these kind of dynamics elements in Turkey?
The main opposition party, CHP, had there not been a leadership change, I think would have stayed in a much more passive position. This time they sent a delegation right after events were unfolding, so they were there when there were demonstrations, and when Dem Party itself was issuing statements, was trying to issue statements because there was heavy security pressure. So they were cooperating side by side with Dem Party and the whole one electorate for that matter. Plus, they had CHP member, a higher ranking CHP member, the vice municipal president of the CHP party at one, who wanted to intervene on behalf of AK Party in a way that AK Party would benefit. So that person, that CHP representative at one, was trying to support the legal case by filing his own petition that Abdullah Zeydan should be stripped of rights of public duty. What CHP did was immediately to expel that member. That's very important. Not only sending a delegation, but expelling a member who acted contrary to party policies and who was trying to do something against Abdullah Zeydan's infringement of rights. So this is a new confidence on behalf of CHP. The new leader of CHP, Özgür Özel, was already much more outgoing when he was speaking about the Kurdish rights, Kurdish freedoms, Kurdish question. But somehow that didn't resonate so much with the Kurdish electorate in general, Dem Party. So he was met with skepticism. But this time it's not only words but deeds as well. So this is a big difference, and I think it mattered more so among the Kurdish public in general, and it also built bridges between the Kurdish people and the population in general. This was something we haven't seen since years. Probably only back in 2015 when the Kurdish political movement back then, Halkların Democratic Party, People's Freedom Party, Democratic Party, had a landslide in their own on Scala, let's say, had a landslide result of 13%. Given that usually now the newcomers of this movement, the newcomer parties of this movement are scoring around 9%. 13% was the highest margin that they could ever score. So back in 2015, there was that cooperation between the Kurdish population, the Kurdish political movement, and the larger demographic groups. So we've seen the comeback of that since almost 10 years. This was a big thing, and this was something totally uncalculated on behalf of those who are plotting, those who triggered all these legal events.
Well, yes, I think you have. Yes, now I can see you. There were some frozen scene that I've seen. So now you're here. I'm glad that you didn't go anywhere. Yes. Well, we're now coming to kind of an end, but I have another question because I think this is important. Because everyone, I think, wondering this kind of results now coming from after the local elections. How might the outcome of these local elections influence national politics, especially in the light of upcoming presidential elections in 2028? Because there it will be like 4 years later than this local election. But on the other hand, how will be the movement of maybe the ruling party side? How they manage this kind of defeat for them, and how this may turn into a positive way for CHP? How do you see this?
It very much depends on what the winner parties make out of their success. Primarily CHP, of course, but to an extent Yeniden Refah, Welfare Party, New Welfare Party, the Islamist, I say populist, Islamist populist party, but you can say the New Conservative Party. It depends very much on how they act, how they entrench themselves in the new electorate that they have found. And of course, aside from that, protecting that newfound base, they have to extend beyond. Because one way or the other, it's a 50-50 system, almost 50 plus system in the presidential elections, that you have to score higher than 50% in order to have the presidency. And we still have CHP scoring around 37%. It's a really miracle outcome, record outcome. It's a big success. And now CHP is the first party in Turkey, and AK Party for AKP is scoring, coming the second since their foundation. Since 22 years, it's a first. So it's a big thing. But there must be a big push. They have to work really hard in order to institutionalize that success, because otherwise it will just wither away one way or the other. What might happen is that I don't expect AK Party, Justice and Development Party, to have a stellar ascendancy once more, but they can somehow manage perceptions. If the opposition just fragments away, they cannot make use of their success, and they will just fall into the old traps of bickering with each other and not conducting politics. Because I think the huge success of these elections, if there's a success, it was the big return of the politics. It's a grand re-entrance of politics, because since the Turkey switched to presidential system, the president and the entourage, they were just cooperating. They were just a group of appointed advisors, bureaucrats, etc. But you didn't have veteran politicians, grassroots politicians coming from the local branches of the party system, who are because being a politician is something completely different than being a bureaucrat or an advisor. You can have all the knowledge, and also it's a matter of question whether the advisors that the president selected are those real experts. So there's that problem as well. There's an issue of meritocracy in Turkey. But aside from that, being a politician is something completely different. So what AK Party lacks direly are politicians now. They shed almost all their successful politicians, and in that sense, I don't expect AK Party to make a big comeback because it's been a chronic
Mm,
bleeding of votes since election after election, and this was coming. Uh, Even in the May elections, they could only manage to get presidency by having new parties just added to their alliance.
mhm,
Moreover, it was AK Party itself, what they chose, the path they chose, and the path that Erdogan himself particularly chose, that brought the party to this point. So I
mm,
find it very difficult that they'll get democratic and they'll just have a very sincere uh, criticism, self-criticism of the party. It's quite impossible.
mm. Well, yeah, this is the bigger picture, I think. Hopefully, we will see what will the outcome in 2028. It will be an interesting
It's a long time,
election for sure. Yeah,
and there may
and
be early elections.
maybe this is another possibility, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, there may be early elections. I don't expect elections for a few more years to come. But there may be early elections because there has to be early elections if Erdogan is going to be re-elected. That's for sure, because there has to
Mhm.
be a constitutional change, and then he becomes re-elected. Otherwise, his term limits are up. So if he waits until 2028, then he has to appoint a successor. I say appoint,
Well,
by the way.
how do you
He has to select one.
yeah, how do you see the possibility of having an early constitutional referendum? You think will there be any referendum happening in near future in Turkey?
Well, I call AK Party a ballot box junkie. So they have to have elections one way or the other in order to assert their hegemony, because they're the almighty majority party. Now that they have lost that title, that perception for the first time in their history, they have to have an election one way or the other, a kind of ballot box. It might be the referendum, as you mentioned, so that they show to the electorate, they gain back their legitimacy to do big things, to assert big policies. And they're always the whole presidential system was about these big policies that spearheaded by AK Party. So they have to have the ballot box one way or the other. So it might be a referendum, but we'll have to see. Now, in 10 days or so, after the holidays in Turkey, the Ramadan holidays, then there are going to be the constitutional debates beginning, and I think they'll try to switch whole debates, whole political debate, from local politics to Ankara, to the Grand National Assembly. And let's remember that Grand National Assembly and the power of parliamentarians have been curbed to a great extent by the presidential system. So when you turn back the attention to Grand National Assembly, you're going to be left with old faces and the old politics, old incapable politics of the capital, and that might have a detrimental effect in general about the political psyche in Turkey. So this is, I think, what the government is opting for, and this is their base now. Ankara politics is their prime base.
Hmm. Well, we will see, but I think in overall, the people in Turkey, they feel tired of elections. They feel tired of going to ballot boxes for voting. So hopefully in the near future, for myself as well, I don't want any other elections coming in Turkey. But of course, if there will be, we will follow it closely.
Well, I think if it happens, it won't happen so quick, in a few years. And
in a
let's
few years.
remember, for the general elections, now the parliamentarians have to have their parliamentary rights of having pensions, etc. There are certain extra rights that they can obtain, and they shouldn't have elections for 2 years. So at least for 1 more year, you won't see general elections. They won't vote for that. Because otherwise they'll
Thanks.
lose the new parliamentarians will lose their rights, so their
Yes,
privileges.
thanks to that, we won't see at least the elections in 2 years now. Thanks for this
Thank you.
information as well. Is there anything you would like to add before we close this discussion?
Well, it was a historic win, and I think it was very significant at this point of history, or at this point of politics in general, that Turkey had that kind of a success, because these elections were not free and fair. It was an uneven terrain, but despite that uneven terrain, the opposition managed to have such a victory, such a massive victory, and I think it went unrecognized. There wasn't that much of an applause, and even not an applause, but even a recognition of that success of the Turkish opposition in Europe by the US. Because let's remember, the Biden administration is also emphasizing democracies against autocracies. So you have the democratic opposition winning, and it's went, I think, unrecognized, and probably in the future it will be. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I remember that time when Biden was elected, and what happened in the Capitol Hall on January 6th. It was a nightmare, but it was a tiny, small uprising. Actually, it wasn't like a whole.
It was a very horrible saga, definitely, and yeah, but Turkey managed to have this success, and I think it should be recognized. This is what I'm emphasizing, especially by the EU, of course. I mean, Biden administration, to an extent, has to have good relations with Erdogan government. So the opposition in Turkey does not. Yeah, for the short term, it's not their concern, and it's understandable. It's a transaction relationship between Turkey and US now, and they have to be working with Erdogan. They recognize that. But specifically in case of the EU, the whole silence, because for example, Poland's election back in October 2023, where the opposition managed to have a scoop of victory in the general elections against a populist, conservative populist government, was celebrated. But I think everyone is in a wait and see mode. They were also surprised, probably, and they know that they have to have a working relationship with Erdogan themselves. But still, maybe in the future they may recognize better.
Hopefully, well, the international press was very interested in the historic win, for sure. They even put headlines, our local election results, on Monday's paper, especially. Hopefully, media is another power, especially internationally. Hopefully, they will influence the administrations across Europe and also US as well. So, but in the coming days, I'm expecting some sort of maybe greetings or message, something like that. We will see that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thank you very much for joining me
Thank you.
today.
Thank you.
It was wonderful to have you here. Today's discussion,
Yeah,
even though
definitely great to be with you.
I know we are on a holiday mood now because it's 9 days. Holidays are coming because
I'll
of
be
the.
working, so no holiday mood for me.
Okay, Okay, happy Ramadan for you before we leave, and have a lovely holiday. At least you may find some maybe tiny time space to have a rest
Yeah.
at least.
Well, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, yes, we discussed the new events in Turkey, because it was very significant and very historic, actually. The ruling party stepping back from canceling the annulment of procured Dem parties winning in one. Uh, some interesting days are coming for sure. And I will be following closely those events in Turkey. But next week we won't have any kind of YouTube live discussions, as I mentioned. There will be 9 days holidays for Ramadan 8. But after that, I will come back with different discussions, and very interesting discussions are coming up for sure. A little tip for you. Till then, have a lovely holiday for those who will celebrate Ramadan 8, and the others have a lovely week. Till then, take care. Bye bye.